New global tariffs introduced by President Trump are sending ripples through international trade, creating significant economic uncertainty for everyone. President Trump's administration has just rolled out a new wave of global tariffs, triggering immediate concern across international markets. This policy shift introduces a sweeping 10% universal tariff on most imported goods, with even higher duties potentially exceeding 60%, targeting specific products from countries like China. Economists are projecting these measures could add hundreds of billions of dollars in new costs to the global economy annually, directly impacting trade flows and manufacturing decisions. This aggressive move is already forcing multinational corporations and consumers to brace for significant financial adjustments and widespread market volatility. These new tariffs aren't emerging in a vacuum. They build upon a history of escalating trade tensions that have defined recent years. The previous Trump administration initiated significant tariffs, particularly on steel and aluminum imports, and engaged in a prolonged trade conflict with China, imposing duties on billions of dollars worth of goods. These past actions led to reciprocal tariffs from affected nations, creating a cycle of protectionism that disrupted global supply chains and elevated costs for manufacturers and consumers worldwide. The current measures suggest a return to and an intensification of these America First trade principles, reigniting debates over free trade versus economic nationalism. The primary stated motive behind these tariffs is to protect domestic industries and encourage manufacturing within the United States, aiming to boost American jobs and reduce trade deficits. However, the global response has been swift and largely critical. The European Union has voiced strong opposition, threatening potential retaliatory tariffs on a range of U.S. goods, including agricultural products and luxury items, as a defensive measure against what it perceives as protectionist policies. Similarly, the United Kingdom, navigating its post-Brexit trade landscape, has expressed deep concern, fearing disruption to its supply chains and potential negative impacts on its export-oriented economy, suggesting it would also explore its own protective trade mechanisms. China is expected to implement significant counter tariffs, particularly impacting sectors where the U.S. has a trade surplus. For consumers, these tariffs mean a likely increase in the cost of everyday purchases. From imported electronics to clothing and even certain food items, prices are projected to rise, with some analysts forecasting an average 5% to 10% increase on affected goods in the short term. Businesses, especially those reliant on global supply chains, face a daunting challenge. Supply chain disruptions are inevitable, forcing companies to absorb higher import costs or pass them on to consumers. Many are delaying investment plans and rethinking sourcing strategies due to the heightened uncertainty. For example, the automotive industry, heavily dependent on international components, is particularly vulnerable to significant cost hikes. Analysts worldwide are largely pessimistic about the short-term economic outlook, with many forecasting slower global growth. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank have warned that escalating trade protectionism could reduce global GDP growth by as much as 0.5 percentage points over the next year. This potential slowdown is attributed to reduced trade volumes, investment hesitancy, and increased business costs. Industries like technology, automotive, and retail are expected to be among the most affected, facing squeezed profit margins and potential job losses. Investors are closely watching for any signs of de-escalation or further retaliatory measures, as these will dictate market sentiment and economic stability in the coming months. As the dust settles on these new trade policies, the global economy enters a period of heightened vigilance. Businesses will need to adapt quickly, perhaps by diversifying their supply chains or exploring new markets. Consumers should prepare for potential adjustments in pricing. The ongoing dialogue between nations will be crucial in shaping the long-term trajectory of international trade, determining whether these protectionist measures become a temporary blip or a defining characteristic of the next economic era.
This is GeeseFinance.